Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials. We use toilets every single day, several times a day, but generally we don't give them a second thought. Unless, of course, we urgently need one when we're away from home and we're having difficulty in finding one. Parents who are out shopping or driving long distances with young kids will know exactly what I mean. So what are you going to do when something hits the fan or the mains utility grid is down and you've just got to go? Let's find out. If you lose the mains water supply, in theory you can continue to use the household toilet so long as you can throw water down it. However, if the water's off, you'll want to save your precious water for drinking and cooking and not just throw it away. In a major something hit the fan scenario, or if the mains power grid has also gone down, it's only a matter of time before the waste treatment plants also shut down and the sewer system will gradually start to back up. For people in high-rise buildings, the impact could be immediate, as many of these buildings often rely on electric pumps for both fresh water and wastewater. And the last thing you want is to have sewerage overflowing from your toilet. If you've seen my previous video, the biggest killer when something hits the fan, you'll know that maintaining good standards of personal hygiene and sanitation are essential in the aftermath of a large-scale catastrophe, because without it, diseases will rapidly spread through the survivor community. Some of the diseases caused by poor sanitation include cholera, hepatitis, polio and typhoid, and you don't want any of those. So what can you do to provide toilet facilities when the grid is down or something's hit the fan? There are actually many different ways to provide safe toilet facilities in a grid down scenario. Much will depend on where you're living and how long the grid is going to be expected to be down. Clearly there'll be a difference on what you can do if you live in a high-rise apartment rather than in a standalone house with a garden or with land surrounding you. Similarly, there'll be a difference between coping with short-term power or grid outages versus a major and widespread disaster situation. Whatever the scenario, it's always better to have a range of options. The absolute last thing you should do is simply walk outside, do your business in the nearest available space, and not worry about it. Whatever you do must be controlled and safe for yourself and for those around you. So let's take a look at some of the options. Okay, so I thought I'd start off with two of the most simplest and portable solutions. So I've pulled these out of my preps. I'll take this one first and just push this to one side for a second. This is a chemical toilet. It is manufactured by lots of different companies such as Thetford or Flavia, and it's available online and from camping caravan suppliers. Very simple box system. It's a two-part system. The lower part is filled with a small amount of water and a chemical solution, which is this blue one here. So you dilute that and pop that into the bottom of the system in this tank, and then the top tank is a rinse and flush system, which again has a chemical for disinfecting. Again, you dilute that, but as opposed to just putting a couple of litres in this, it's about a 10 litre holding tank, 15 litres, something like that. Instead of only putting a couple of litres of the solution in, this one you actually fill full because you're going to use this to flush the toilet. So it is essentially the same as a standard domestic toilet with a seat and a lid. The chemical for the lower case goes into this cap unscrews and you drop the chemical and the couple of litres of water into there. And for the top one there's a cap on here, so again dilute the pink chemical and fill that full, and that gives you your rinse tank. So
simply sit on the toilet. There's a lever here that you need to pull out to reveal the tank in the bottom and somewhere for your business to go to. Do what you need to do in there, and then you can use this pump system to simply rinse the bowl, close the lever, that seals the bottom tank again, and you're good to go. When you do need to empty the tank and it's become full, the waste tank at the bottom, there's a couple of clips on the side here. You simply release those clips. Top section will then lift off. The bottom section, you can see it is self-contained. You simply take that away, unscrew the cap on the top, empty it, and then you're ready to refill and you're good to go. So it is a very simple and easy to use system. It's essentially just like going to the toilet at home. A couple of downsides to this. First of all, it's a short-term solution, not a permanent off-grid solution, because it does rely on water, it does rely on a supply of chemicals, and of course it requires somewhere for you to safely dispose of the waste tank, which you would normally do down a standard toilet. So it's an excellent solution for short-term off-grids, so power outages where you know it's going to come back on, or water outages where you know it's going to come back on, or indeed if you're off out camping, caravanning, whatever. But it's not a permanent off-grid solution for all of those different reasons. So I'll push that to one side and bring in this one, which you can see says toilet kit on the top. It's a standard bucket. This holds, or did hold, 25 kilos. I've simply recycled this from a construction project that I did, and I've got a couple of these, so I thought why not make use of them and recycle. I can't use them for food storage because it's not food grade bucket and it has had chemicals, cement inside, but I can use it as a toilet kit, so that's what I've done. We'll pop the lid off and we'll see how this works. So inside the bucket we've got lots of different things. I'll pull those out and then push the bucket to one side. There is actually a bucket within a bucket, and it depends entirely what you want to put in the kit, but the essentials are in here and I'll run through those. So within this bucket I've got some tea tree wet wipes for wiping my hands. I've got the obligatory toilet roll. You are going to definitely need that. Some more tea tree wipes there. I've got some, these are actually baby wipes for when you're changing the baby. So I've got a couple of packets in there. There's no chemicals on these, they are just water wipes essentially, just in case you want to have an extra clean up after you've been. And then again, hygiene is desperately important whenever you're going to the toilet anyway, but particularly if you're off-grid long-term, hygiene is absolutely essential, and I've talked about that in a previous video. So we've got a few bottles there of hand sanitizer. So they're all inside that internal bucket, along with a roll of bin bags. Last but not least, and very, very important, this is actually a catheter that you would get if you've got pet cats at home and you put out a tray for them, their toilet tray. You put cat litter on to absorb whatever the cat's produced, and to both sanitise it and cut down on any smells that there might be. And I'll explain what we do with that in a second. So as I said, we've got a bucket. This is a bag and bin toilet system. You clearly wouldn't want to sit on that edge to go to the toilet because it is quite sharp. So you simply bob down to a local builder's merchant and you buy some of this, which is a foam pipe insulation tube. Very, very cheap. I think they're about £1.50 per metre strip. I've actually got a multi-pack of these because eventually, over time with use, these will start to break down and lose their softness, or they might start to crack or split. So essentially, to make your toilet, you take your bucket, you take your plastic bin bag, drop it inside the bucket, like so. Make sure there is a push down and you've got a kind of a flat area at the bottom. You get your pipe insulation and you simply put that onto the edge of the bucket and then gradually work your way around. And in true YouTube fashion, this is probably where it all goes horribly wrong. It starts coming off. My fingers crossed it won't. And it hasn't. So there we go. We've got our nice soft installation on there. I'm sure you don't want to see how it's used. I'm sure you can imagine for yourself. You just sit on there, ready to go. So before first use, get your cat litter. It doesn't have to be in a huge tub like this, but that's just convenience. It's easy to store. It's not going to get wet in this plastic tub. I can take the cap off and I can pour in exactly what I need. So simply get the cat litter. You could use sawdust or wood shavings. This is just really, really compact stuff, so it makes it ideal. And of course it is what it's designed for. It is designed for this very purpose. So pop a layer of the cat litter, or whatever it is you're going to use, into the bottom of the bucket. Clearly sit on the bucket, do what you need to do. You've got all of your cleaning materials there to clean off. Once you're finished, you obviously don't want to leave this open and exposed to the air, especially if you're on the move or if you've got it in your off-grid cabin or tent or whatever you're using. So simply remove your soft spongy toilet seat. You can fold the bag back in and tie it with some tie wraps, or just fold it in loosely on itself. You don't want it to get too far down. And then you can pop your lid back onto your bucket and you're good to go. So you're simply repeating the process. You're doing what you need to do, covering it with cat litter, again doing what you need to do, covering it with the cat litter. And that's your two compact and portable systems. Clearly the benefits of this bucket system are it's completely self-contained, there is no water involved at all, you're not relying on resupplies of chemicals. As long as you've got your cleaning materials and you've got a supply of your absorbing material, your cat litter or your sawdust or whatever you're using, you can continue pretty much indefinitely with this. At a push, I guess, you could use dry soil, which is clearly available everywhere. Once the bag starts to get filled up, clearly don't go all the way to the top. You do simply bag and bin, which is why I call it my bag and bin system. Again, you are dependent here on having some method of disposing of these bags. Clearly you don't want to be just dumping these around willy-nilly in the woods or in the street or wherever. So again, these are shorter term solutions. There are longer term solutions for grid down, for a long grid down situation, and we'll talk about those in a moment.
If you like the idea of the bag and bin toilet but don't like the idea of having to make one, then don't worry, you can get them online. I'll drop some links into the description box below. In the world before flushing toilets and main sewer systems, the most common form of toilet was the latrine or outhouse. For those of you who are actually off-grid now, you might well use this method, or you might have started using this method when you first moved off-grid. Essentially, a latrine is just a deep hole in the ground, and an outhouse is a latrine with some kind of covering. For more regular or large-scale use, you just simply dig a bigger hole, put a slab or sheet over the hole, and then install a hole for a squat or perhaps construct some form of toilet seat. As with any form of off-grid toilet, there are a number of important things to consider, especially since you'll be depositing and leaving potentially large amounts of waste just dumped into the ground. Firstly, you need to determine exactly where to put the latrine. It should always be downhill of your water source and at least 2 to 3 metres above any groundwater table, and at least 30 metres away from an open source of water such as a lake or a river. This is especially important in areas that might have some kind of fissured rocks such as limestone in the ground, as the sewage can readily be carried through the cracks in the rock and then continue into the groundwater table or into the flowing watercourses. You should also consider any potential risk for flooding in the area and avoid digging the latrine in these locations. When digging the latrine, the size of the pit should be relevant to the amount of which it will be used. Realistically, it should be at least 5 feet deep and 4 feet wide to make sure that you'll have enough capacity for it to be functional for a significant period of time. As with any kind of deep digging, you also need to take precautions to avoid being trapped in the hole by the collapse of the side walls while you're digging. And again, provide some kind of support covering across the open surface of the pit. Once in use, it's worth installing some kind of mechanism by which you can cover the actual toilet opening, both to reduce smells but more importantly to control flies and insects and prevent any wildlife from accidentally falling into the latrine. Clearly, the lifespan of the latrine will be dictated by how many people are using it, and over prolonged periods you may find you need to dig another. Most certainly, when the levels of the waste in the hole approach within 3 feet of the surface, it's time to backfill it with soil and go about digging another one. Finally, also bear in mind that in addition to the hygiene risks associated with human waste, the waste will actually give off methane. The more that waste is in the hole, the more methane it's possible to be generated. Therefore, it's not really a good idea to be smoking or using naked lights while you're in the latrine. And certainly when it's backfilled, it will need some kind of ventilation pipe if you haven't done this as part of the initial build. While this is the easiest sewage disposal method, not everyone is thrilled about the idea of having to go outside to the toilet. Might be okay for a few days of camping here and there, but visiting the latrine during cold winter nights isn't really much fun, nor is it fun in the rain or the snow. Similarly, your outside space might be just too small to accommodate the size of hole or number of latrines that you might need to dig in order to support the size of your group. So it's something to consider when you're thinking about what solution to use. If you need to handle large amounts of waste, or if you only fancy digging a hole once, then maybe a septic tank system is the one for you. A septic system is basically a large tank buried under the ground into which the waste from a standard domestic toilet is flushed. As the waste flows into the tank, the bacteria inside the tank breaks down the waste and it settles naturally into layers of solid or sludge at the bottom of the tank, with liquid above that and then a top layer of foam. As the levels within the tank start to rise, the liquid layer will eventually reach an outlet pipe built into the side of the tank, which allows the liquid to flow out and through a layer of soak-away material into the surrounding ground, or perhaps through a natural filter system such as a reed bed. These systems can easily be purchased and installed by a wide range of companies in a wide range of sizes and styles. However, they're not cheap, and while there are DIY solutions available on the internet, they do require specific knowledge and they are resource intensive to construct properly. While septic tanks might be a good idea for more remote off-grid locations during normal times, they do still rely on having a permanent water supply, and they also require emptying at regular intervals. Therefore, they're not necessarily the best solution for a crisis or long-term off-grid scenario, unless of course you're sure that you can continue to source large volumes of water from your location and you have the means to empty the tank and dispose of the resulting waste safely. There is a very cheap, simple and reliable long-term off-grid toilet option readily available, and it's something that more and more people are looking into, and it's called a compost toilet. In addition to providing a safe and effective toilet solution for your off-grid needs, you also get a second benefit for free. Well, it's free apart from a little bit of labour and patience, in that the waste that you produce and dispose of actually gets recycled into a compost that you can use in your garden to help feed your group. Yes, poop can really be turned into a safe compost you can use in your garden. A simple compost toilet system basically consists of a number of buckets which you rotate and into which you do your toilet business. It's pretty much the same fashion as we looked at earlier with the bag and bin system. However, with this system, each time you use the toilet, you put a little bit of sawdust or some other absorbent material. It is usually carbon type material though, such as sawdust or wood shavings and chippings. When the bucket's almost full, you simply remove it, put a new bucket in its place, take the old bucket and which full of your sawdust and your waste out into your garden area or outdoor area where you've got a compost heap, and you tip the bucket into the compost heap, wash out the bucket and restart the cycle all over again. The system is so simple and reliable that commercial compost toilet systems are now readily available from lots of suppliers. They're obviously made to a more stylish design, and many of the systems come complete with a method of ventilation such as small electric fans which push the air through the waste and then into a pipe and outside of the home, so you don't have any issues with smells. However, as with all commercially produced items, these can be quite expensive, and in general the waste container that the commercial solutions use is generally much smaller than the DIY system, which then means you'll be emptying these a lot more frequently. In truth, you can make the same thing for far less money and in whatever shape or design or size that's needed to fit into the space that you've got available within your off-grid home. Irrespective of whether you have a commercial or a DIY system, they do have a couple of common downsides. The first is that, unlike a latrine or septic system, you do need to handle and move the waste containers, the buckets in other words. However, if your system is constructed properly and the outside of the waste container, the bucket, is kept clean, with care it can be emptied into the compost heap without getting dirty at all. The other downside is that the volume of urine we produce is far greater than the amount of solid waste produced. This can lead to the waste containers becoming full far quicker than they need to, and the absorbent material used in the waste bucket can quickly turn into more of a liquid rather than a solid. This can sometimes make emptying it a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. Also, when urine becomes exposed to the air, it quickly starts to smell, whereas the solid waste, when covered with the sawdust, generally doesn't. It is therefore beneficial to design a system which separates out the urine from the solid waste, so that it can be held in a different container and disposed of separately from the solids. Because of this, there are special urine diverting toilet seats that you can get for use with composting toilets, and indeed the majority of the commercially bought systems do just that. On the upside, in addition to the ability to produce free compost, these systems don't require the use of any water, so you don't have to waste that valuable resource by throwing it away down the toilet. It's advisable to get rid of the urine as quickly as you can. When it leaves the body it is sterile, but if you allow it to sit around in the containers for a while, it certainly will start to smell, so it is better to get rid of it straight away. You can dispose of it straight into the ground, either into mulched area or woodland area, or into a soakaway, so long as you give it a rinse off and make sure it has actually soaked into the ground and is not sat pooled on the surface. Alternatively, you can use urine as a kind of compost in its own right. If you dilute it at a ratio of between 10 or 15 to 1, then you can safely apply it to the root zone in the vegetable garden and use it as a compost. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you found something in there that was of use to you. If you did like the video, then please do click on the like button, and also feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Always welcome any questions, comments or suggestions you might have. Just drop them into the comments section below. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.